Hello, everyone, and warm welcome to this session of the Leading Complexity program. And today we have with us the lovely Lyssa Adkins. She is well known for this book, Coaching Agile Teams, sold in 75,000 copies and also translated into 10 languages. But today, Lyssa is working very much with coaching leadership teams. The session today, Lyssa, it will be about the leader's agile transformation and our planetary challenges. Wow, that sounds really interesting. So let me stop here and let it all over to you, Lyssa, and for everyone. Oh, Lyssa, you are so lovely. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I once got the feedback in my own leadership journey. A friend of mine who was in this year-long leadership program with me said, Lyssa, sometimes you trade being kind for being right. And so to hear you, Thomas, and other people say that they're looking forward to hearing the way that I am more kind now. It's been a hard-won battle. That's all I have to tell all of you people. It's been a hard-won battle. So I'm so appreciative of being here, and I'm hoping that what we can experience together will open some new avenues of thought. I've been so impressed with the other sessions in this masterclass series. I watched almost all of them, and it's caused me to change up everything that I had planned to do here. So what we're going to do is just a bunch of experiments together, a bunch of experiential things based on, I think, the largest context we all share, and also just based on my own experience of coaching leaders and, but more importantly, leadership teams over the last couple of years. So I'm going to share just a little bit of PowerPoint with you to drop us into this huge context that we're all in. And it starts with me doing my best to give a good rendition of Drew Dellinger's poem called Hieroglyphic Staircase. It's 3:23 in the morning and I'm awake because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do while the planet was plundered? What did you do when the earth was unraveling? Surely you did something when the seasons started failing, as all the mammals, reptiles, birds were all dying. Did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? What did you do once you knew? What did you do once you knew? I think in our community, which is in business, we sometimes believe that the largest context we're in altogether is business. But the largest context we're in altogether is this one precious place that we call our planet, and the very near precipice that we're on as a human species. So I wanted to drop us into this context right away, because to ignore this it's at best short-sighted and not good for business either, by the way. But at the worst, it's terminal. So it's not something that I can easily ignore. And I hope that more of us cannot ignore it over time. So what I'm going to do now is share with you some amazing images of our beautiful world for about 2 minutes. And during that period of time, I just really encourage you to take in the images, allow yourself to be awed and stunned by them, allow yourself to appreciate the beauty, the elegance, the exquisiteness of this home that we all share. I've seen those images a lot, and they never fail to move me. And that quote by Rachel Carson at the end, "Well, what if I had never seen this before? And what if I knew I would never see it again?" See, I think the place for us to start our work in is the heartbreak of those questions. So I would love for you to put into chat, like, what's the thing that comes to your mind when you think of when you think, what if I'd never seen this? And what if I knew I would never see it again? What's the thing that you would miss, the thing that you would long for? Let's see some of those come up. And those of you later who are watching this recording, just follow along with us. There's going to be a lot of experiential stuff like this. Marcia says, beauty. Yeah, so abundant, so abundant in our natural world. If you're sort of struggling for like, what would it be? Look in your camera roll. You probably took a picture of something that you think is beautiful, that brings you a sense of wonder and joy, as people are saying in the chat. Yeah. And also the feeling of sadness and emptiness when we think about all we are on the verge of losing and are losing, quite frankly. Helena says the sun. Oh, those little curious little details. Oh, isn't it amazing how beautiful the world is on the micro level? Yeah. Seeing things beyond the normal. And yet, the images you just looked at are like so very normal. If you look around your own environment, you will find so many very normal, beautiful things. All those interrelationships beyond comprehension, Bazil is saying. Endlessnesses of experience. Yeah. Boy, we are really lucky to be human at this particular time in this particular place. So I realized that what I've just done is drop us into what is tender territory and maybe even a little bit difficult. So what I want to do is just lead us through a 60-second nervous system soothing. And you can do it any way you like, any way you normally soothe your nervous system. Or if you want to follow one of the ways I do it, you just follow along with me. I have a lot of ways of doing this because, I mean, let's be fair, you got to do it several times a day in our current world. So just here's one of the ways I'm liking these days. Okay, like this. Build up a lot of heat. If you want to do it with me, build up a lot of heat. If you're not doing this with me, fine. Just soothe your nervous system some other way. And now let it rain down from the top of your head, down to your shoulders, and go ahead and just feel. Oh, you know that. We're going to do it one more time. Here we go. And soothe. Soothe the nervous system, because even though things are urgent, if we act on high alert, we're not going to be able to think very well. Now, this is another thing I like to do. Take your two little fingers like this and put them over your heart. And you know, that moment where you're stroking a baby's head and it's just so gentle and so beautiful. Just imagine that that's what you're doing. You're just over your heart, little circles, just like you would stroke a baby's head. And in a moment like this, I often say to myself, and I'll say to you all now, my great full heart overflows with compassion for me. My great full heart overflows with compassion for me. Oh, nice. Nice work. Really nice work. So where we're headed is just 3 little bites that I've been taking out of this thing we call leading complexity, which is a big topic in the middle. And as I've been watching all these other master classes, I realized we're all sort of doing the same thing. Although, to be fair, I do not put myself in the same class as some of our other teachers in this master class. And what we're really doing is just we're taking bites out of this thing that we're trying to make sense of. And if we do come up with a unified model for how to lead in complexity, well, we better be ready for it to change, right? And not hold on to anything as too precious. And so what I'm offering you are three things that, or three areas, I should say, that are coming from my direct experience working with leadership teams. And they are simply this: upgrade, downshift, expand. Upgrade, downshift, expand. You can do it with me if you want. Upgrade, downshift, expand. We're going to 2 more times. Upgrade, downshift, expand. Last time. Upgrade, downshift, expand. In a nutshell, that's what we're doing in this next hour and 15 minutes together that we still have left. So where are we going first, everyone? Upgrade. You got it. Upgrade. So what we want to do is upgrade our complexity of mind. Putting these three things in the chat now. Upgrade your complexity of mind, downshift your nervous system, and expand your team's 5 core competencies. And we're entering the territory of upgrade now. So, those of you, and many of you have been doing this for a long time, studying adult development, coaching. Those of you who are organizational leaders have been on your own journey to upgrade your own complexity of mind and your own meaning making to be more of a match for the world we're in. And we all still have more work to do. So when I think about upgrade your mental complexity, I think of a very, very simple but powerful way to shift into a greater sense of mental complexity. And this is work that comes right out of the Leadership Circle. If you all know that work, it's a little shortcut that I have found over time to help ourselves as leaders shift from reactive into outcome creating. And so we're going to do this together in just a moment. And you're going to do it just as a thought experiment, just for yourself. What you're going to do is to think about a real life challenging situation you have going on. I have one that I just got off a work session about. I've got one fresh in my mind. Maybe you do too. So a real life challenging situation. And then you're going to hear that reactive voice go off in your head. And then you're going to ask yourself, whose voice is that? Okay, that's mine. But I'm not that reaction. I'm not that voice. I can choose a different path. And then ask yourself a really, really key question. What am I committed to creating in this situation? And you might have to ask yourself this question several times. What am I committed to creating in this situation? And then act from that vision and that connection to what you love. So let me model this. And as I said, I just got off a work session. This situation is totally fresh in my mind. No clue exactly what's going to come out of my mouth, but this is a useful way to model this because you won't know what's going to come out of your mouth when you do this either. So I'm bringing the situation to my mind. And as I do this, follow along with me if you can, and bring your real situation to your mind. So some narrative about my situation is I'm helping a team through intractable conflict. They're to the point where they can't say anything to each other now without it becoming a big deal. And so now I'm already hearing that reactive voice in my head. That reactive voice is saying to me, Lyssa, yeah, you're really well skilled in this, but you don't have as much experience in this as other people. I mean, for goodness sake, people do peacekeeping all over the world. They're certainly more talented and skilled in this than you are. You can do some real damage to these people if you don't, handle this with care, or if you get outside of your skill set and you don't know it. So, okay, that's my reactive voice, right? How many of you can contact your reactive voice? Do you know which one I'm talking about? Okay, great. It's the one that's just going to give you a monologue. It's going to give you a monologue of all the ways that this could go wrong, all the ways you want certain things, all the ways that you would like it to be a certain way, and your frustration that it's not. Okay. So now I'm saying to myself, okay, I hear that reactive voice, and I'm not that voice. And I can, someone's saying a monologue for weeks sometimes. Yes, indeed. Sometimes it can be a monologue for weeks. I can choose a different path, is what I'm saying to myself now. And now asking myself this question, what am I committed to creating in this situation? So if I think about this situation, what am I committed to creating? And it's so funny because what comes up right away is that I'm committed to creating a group of people who are just a tiny bit more transparent with each other about what's really going on internally when they're talking to each other. You know, like if there could just be a little crack of light and they're not so much behind their walls of defensiveness and their walls of reactivity, which is where they are now. And so I asked myself then, okay, so if that's what I'm committed to creating in this situation, then how might I act? What might I do? It's so funny. Like all that reactive talk, it gets calmed down right away because really I'm helping them take a step that is gigantic for them, but is actually just a step that I know quite well. And I've been here before with other groups, and it's ultimately not my responsibility how all this works out. I mean, who am I to think that in this complex adaptive system that they are, that I could do something that would so harm them or so help them so much that it would just completely destroy them? That's sort of a ridiculous idea now. So I will just continue with this line of thought and continue to get closer to like, what is it that I love? What am I wanting to create? And from there, what might I do? Versus acting from the restricted position. So this is something I lead leaders through all the time. And it's really sort of basic, but it can be quite profound, this shift. Let me show you why it matters. That if we look to the model that's coming to us from the leadership circle folks, they define these different levels of leadership. And for the planetary challenges that we just dropped into together, where we need to be is at the integral level of leadership, which thank goodness Bob Anderson is now helping to create some definition around for all of us. And if you follow that bit.ly link, you'll go to his white paper where he is being very definitive now about what this level of leadership looks like, how it acts, what it can do. By the way, I'm going to share a lot of links. I'm going to make sure they are in two places, in the show notes for the recording of this, or in the description rather, and then also in an email that'll come to everyone who's registered. Now, the little thing I just led us through, that reactive to outcome creating shift, this is where we are. So we have quite a ways to go yet. And we have people leading the way and opening doors for all of us to get there. And I feel like I'm in good company here with you all, because it's the work we do to recognize where we are, where we need to be, and how to help other people make the shifts that are appropriate for their context. So one of the other things I say, and if you listened to the 5 and 5 that were in the links that were sent as pre-work, and we'll make sure they're in the post email as well. But if you listen to that, one of the things I say, and I think this is pretty important, is that leaders do their leadership development work out loud. And I get how terrifying that can be for leaders. I mean, because they are under a microscope. Leaders are under a microscope. Every action they do has a significant impact. And it can be really scary as a leader to try to change anything about the way you lead. So what dawned on me earlier this year is that we have plenty of books. We have all kinds of books and all kinds of things that would help leaders step into this century, step into a collective form of leadership, which is being called for in almost every context. And so this book, Lead Together, which I loved, I didn't write it, but I loved it so much that I became the voice of it. I narrated it for the audiobook. And earlier this year, a friend of mine, Ron Laudadio, and I started a podcast that was just released 2 days ago. And what this is leaders doing their leadership development work out loud. So our first guest is Priscilla Dunant-Moritz. And if you listen to this, you'll hear her. She has read about something in the Lead Together book that she wants to bring into her own real life leadership work and how she's leading the transformation at Philips. And so we hear what she wants to do. She crafts herself an experiment in this first podcast. And then in the next podcast, she comes back, like all good coaching arcs do, action and accountability. She comes back and says what she learned from her experiment. And then we hear from another leader who has read something else in this book and wants to actually do it. They craft their experiment. Next time we'll hear how it goes. So that's how this podcast goes. And I'm really excited to share with you that it just came out. So again, you can click on this, this QR code, or all of these links are going to be available to you. So I think it's important to just encourage ourselves and all the leaders we work with to do their leadership development work out loud. Any tiny change they make could make an absolutely huge, huge change for everyone around them. Okay, so upgrade, downshift, expand. Upgrade, downshift, expand. We're about to move. Upgrade, downshift, expand. Where are we going? Downshift. Downshift. So what I mean by this is to downshift your nervous system. In other words, that as leaders in the world, we need to be responsible for our internal state at all times. It is the thing we can do. It is the one thing that we don't exactly have total control over, but we do have methods to work with our internal system. All right, so when the air is not clear between you and someone else, or you and a lot of someone else's, then it's really hard to have the full range of actions available to you. Now, I was really impressed by Jennifer Garvey Berger's session in this masterclass series. She did a beautiful job of lots of ways that you can downshift your nervous system. And she calls it, I like what she says, she calls it having a complexity fit nervous system. So having a complexity fit nervous system as yourself. And then she also gave lots of ideas for how to create an environment where more people can have a complexity fit nervous system. That's all great. I want to build on that and do something with you all that that I think is super powerful, is super, super powerful. And you would use this thing when is the situation that, who was it? Oh, Christina said earlier, where she's like, sometimes that voice in my head is a monologue for a week or more. And I don't know if I'm the only one who does this, but anyone else argue with people in their heads? Do you do that? Yes, of course you do. Of course you do. So what I notice is that it's not enough sometimes to keep our own nervous and energetic system clean and help other people do that. Sometimes there's enough gunk, enough buildup between us and other people that the air is not clean. And what that means is that, well, let me tell you this way. I know the air is not clean for me when I find that I can't be fully authentic in the situation or with this person. In other words, I'm sort of careful, not wanting to make a mistake. I'm maybe being a little bit less of who I actually am. Or when I've lost the connection, when the intimacy has gotten interrupted somehow. When I find that I can't really see this person as fully human, I've started objectifying them as a problem, for example. That's one way it shows up for me. Or the R in air is respondability. I no longer have the full range of responses available to me. I start to discount, oh no, they won't go for that. Oh no, that's too advanced. Oh no, and all of a sudden I'm in this little box of just very quote unquote acceptable actions that I think might fly in this situation. So If you use this acronym to help you know when the air is not clean between you and someone else, you will find these ways that you know the air is not clean, like I just told you about mine. Yours will be different. It'll be amazing for you to discover them. Because if you discover that the air is really dirty between you and someone else, guess what? You can't really be all that helpful in that situation anymore or with that person anymore. So, what I'm going to lead you through is an energetic practice that will help you clear the energetic cords between you and someone else and leave all of the healthy, vibrant cords in place so that you can move forward. This is part of you doing your own inner work to keep your own state in good health. So if you want to come along with me, this is going to be about 5 or 7 minutes. I'll lead you through it. It's just an imagination journey. And if you don't want to, that's okay. You can just watch this thing as if it's a play and just, have your own thoughts about it. So what we're about to do is release all of the cords that are no longer serving you. When I say cords, I mean those connections between you and someone else. Sometimes you might see them as ropes or thin filaments or strings or twine or chains, however you see them. Okay. So the first step is to take a couple deep breaths. And in your imagination, feel the warmth of the sun. Imagine that you're in a summer day and you feel the warmth of the sun on your skin. You can feel it warming you up. Allow that golden light of the sun to enter in through your head, top of your head. Allow it to come down through your body and fill you up. Breathe deeply, deeply, the warmth of the sun in your whole body. And now say to your mind, thank you for being so discerning, so smart. And mind, for the rest of this, you can just relax and enjoy the warmth of the sun. Now bring your attention into the area of your heart. Feel the warmth of the sun fill up this area. Feel yourself being grounded, calm, sure, knowing who you are, knowing who your highest self is. And I'm going to ask a question, and whatever appears as an answer to that question, just go with it, because your heart knows. So the question is, who is someone, and between you the air is not clear? So whose ever face, whose ever essence, whose ever idea of this person has come into your mind, just go with it. Trust that your heart knows. Now imagine that you are standing in a beautiful meadow. It's a clearing with trees all around you. It's a warm, sunny day. And this person that just came to mind is standing at the other side of the clearing. Close enough that you can see each other, but far enough that your energies are separate from each other. And now what you'll do is release the cords that no longer serve the relationship. And you'll do this with your physical hands. You'll start at the top of your head and brush down gently. Anytime you feel your mind come online, you can just tell your mind, relax. You can breathe. Go ahead and let the brushing happen across your face, down to your neck, the back of your neck. If you feel the necessity, go ahead and pause here at the throat and see if any cords want to get filled up in your hands. Sometimes we have cords at our throat, places that we hold back saying what needs to be said. We hold back our truth. And go ahead and release those cords to the ground. You might shake your hands out like this. Just release them. The ground loves these cords. The ground's composting these cords. No problem. Continuing down, brush down your shoulders, each shoulder. See if there's anything that's weighing you down that wants to be let go there. Down the front of your chest, and you might even pause here over your heart and see if there are any cords that want to be collected here. In this area, these are places where our heart's desires don't get met. Any cords that don't serve you, just trust that those are going to drop away and the ones that do serve you are going to stay. All right, let those cords go. Shake out your hands, let them go to the earth. Okay, keep going down. On your back, from your, as far back as you can reach, all the way back, down your hips, down your buttocks, down the front of you, all the way down, and you might stop at your pelvis and see if any cords want to collect here. This is our co-creative center. This is a place where our creativity might be a little bit stifled because the air is not clear. If you collect any cords here, just shake out your hands and let them go. Now we're continuing down the legs, down your thighs, backs of thighs, fronts of thighs, down your calves. Go ahead and if you can, gently pick up one foot, steady yourself, and brush off your feet, top and bottom, any blocks, any cement, any stuckness that's there, let it go. Let it go. Any place that you can't move, where you feel boxed in or restricted, let that go. And now fill yourself up again with that warm yellow light. Whatever you're experiencing is just fine. And now on the other side of the clearing, the person who's just watched you let go of these cords that no longer serve is doing the same thing, but it's happening much faster. You'll just watch them brush down their head, their shoulders, their chest, their stomach, their buttocks, their thighs, their calves, their feet. Watch all those cords that no longer serve just falling off. And now you'll see if there's anything that wants to be said or a gift that wants to be given from you to the other person or the other person to you. At no time let your energy bubble cross this person's energy bubble. They are staying separate. You are whole and complete in yourself. But if there's a gift that you want to give it. Or if there's a gift, or if there's something that wants to be given to you, receive it. Now thank yourself. And thank this other person and watch them turn and walk into the forest. Now you're going to take 3 breaths in your own time. On breath 1, stay with yourself. On breath 2, open your eyes and reconnect to your surroundings. And breath 3, and only as you're able and willing, come back to the Zoom screen. So I would love to hear some experiences of that. Good, bad, beautiful, ugly, indifferent, whatever. Let's hear some experiences of doing cord release. Go ahead and just raise your hands. You'll see the cue, and then you can unmute yourselves in order. Hmm. Whatever is happening with you is okay. And it would be useful to hear what that is for just a few of you. Bit woo-woo for me. Love it, Vanel. Thank you for saying that. Marcia says very powerful. Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story about my husband. Murat says, just released the cord to reality, a bit tired. And Caroline says, relaxing, but was lost a bit. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm going to put in the chat, and this, of course, will be some links for you later. Cord release. This is one of my favorite ones. It's a free audio on an app called Insight Timer. It's not the same one I led you through. It's a different one, but it's really, really fantastic. Yeah. So my husband has what he calls the hooey flag, which is the same thing as a woo-woo flag. So hooey is like a bunch of BS. That's, that's the American phrase for a bunch of BS is, oh, that's a bunch of hooey, right? And where we learned this, my husband and I, was from a woman who does energy healing work in our local area. And when he first started working with her, he would just take out that imaginary flag from his back pocket and he would throw it down and he'd say, that's a bunch of hooey. And then she was like so undeterred. It didn't bother her at all. She's like, okay. And then they just continued doing work together. And it was not long before my husband realized that this work to keep our own energy system clean so that we can do our own work, other people can do their work, and then we can come together is actually super effective. And so now you will often hear my husband say, I'm putting my hooey flag back in my pocket. Now he still has it at the ready because he's very allergic to woo-woo, and that's okay. That's okay. So I offer this to you. It's a bit of an advanced practice. But if you are finding that simply keeping your nervous system online and making it easier for other people to have a complexity fit nervous system is actually not enough for the gunk that's gotten built up between you and someone else in the air, try something like this. There's lots of other things you can do. This is one. This is one. Yeah. Oh, lovely. So that was downshift. So upgrade, downshift, expand. Upgrade, downshift, expand. Someone put in the chat where we're going next. Upgrade, downshift, expand. Where are we going? Upgrade, downshift, expand. Woo, expand. Johan, yes, expand. Woo, okay. So far, I have been talking about individual leaders. Now I want to shift our attention to leadership teams. Because yes, of course, it's important for us to all do our individual work. And when we come together, well, that's where the magic and all the messiness really happens, right? So it's totally appropriate for organizations to focus on their business goals and outcomes, their OKRs, the stuff that we say we want to get done, totally appropriate. And from a certain angle, how those business goals and outcomes actually happen is through conversations, through working sessions and decisions we make together, right? And then if we go one level deeper than that and ask the question, like, how do those conversations, working sessions, and decisions actually happen? They happen through the application of 5 core competencies, or 5 CCs for short. Now, you can have your own core competencies. I'm not saying this is like the perfect list and there's nothing ever that needs to be on this list in the future, but these are the ones I notice with leadership teams and teams in general, by the way, that are sorely lacking. Competence in communication, collaboration, creativity, conflict, and change. I'm sure it's no big surprise, right? You can watch any leadership team in conversation together and say, oh, like, so what's the level of competence that they are exhibiting together in collaboration, for example, or in their ability to navigate conflict? And 9 times out of 10, you are going to find that, well, I'm hoping you're working with different leadership teams than me. It's just not very high. The level of actual competence together in these 5 core competencies is not that high in most conversations that I see. Now, it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. It just means we're in this new era where these core competencies are now core. And we haven't been in this era for very long where we have to be in constant communication and collaboration together to get things done. So think about this, like, think about a team that you work with. It can be any kind of team, a team you're on. And you can just do this as a little thought experiment. You can think, how satisfied am I with the team's communication, like on a scale of 1 to 10, or their collaboration on a scale of 1 to 10, creativity, conflict, change on a scale of 1 to 10. This will orient you as to where some skill building might need to happen. Now, it's totally reasonable to focus on skills and skills in these 5 core areas, for example. And yet there's something that is even more core, a greater place of leverage for us to work to elevate all of these things. And that is in the relationship system, specifically relationship systems intelligence. Now, those of you who are skilled in or trained in or have experienced systems coaching in the human relationship realm probably know it's a pretty powerful place to work from, because human systems are wildly intelligent, but mostly unconscious about themselves. And when we can help a human system see its patterns of interaction, then a whole new source of wisdom and information becomes available. So you think about it this way. If you can help a system, a human system, a leadership team, find its patterns of interaction, and they can shift those patterns to something that's more healthy, then bang, everything comes up. That's why I call it an expansion. Everything expands. Their ability to communicate effectively expands. Their ability to manage conflict or navigate change expands. So this is one of the sources that I learned from Marita Friedjohn and Faith Fuller, who created Organization and Relationship Systems Coaching. This is the book that Marita authored with Frank de Weerd from the Netherlands. South Africa. And it's just a place to go. And I know so many of you are tuning in from Europe. There are very many systemic coaching schools. And I don't know all of them, but anything we can do to elevate and expand our ability to work with the pattern level of what's going on, I think is going to be a really, really useful place for us to all be together. So as a way to experience that relationship system or that pattern level, there's another little imagination journey I'd like to take you on. It's a little more mundane this time, a little more normal this time. You know how a little while ago, perhaps you started to see or sense these chords between you and someone else? Just think about a team that you are working with, or any team that comes to mind right now. And just imagine that between any 2 people are all those chords. And every time those people interact together, more chords get created that are patterns between them. And over time, there's all of this interwoven set of chords, some of which are no longer serving them. Probably many of which are no longer serving them. So if they can start to see the patterns that some of those chords make and start to let them go in favor of patterns that are more healthy, that's a really high place of leverage. So if you were to do this in your own mind, you would just start to imagine like just two people on this team. And just imagine the chord between them. This is, obviously this is through your own filters and biases. This is not accurate or right. It's just going to be useful, right? So you imagine the chord between them. And imagine, is it shiny? Is it frayed? Is it knotted up? Is it really clear? Whatever it is. And then imagine the next pair and the next pair. And imagine as many of them as you can. And start to see if you can see this web that they create together, just in your own mind. And then you come back to exactly what we did at the individual level. How clear is the air between these people? Are they able to be fully authentic? How's their level of intimacy for the sake of connection? And do they have the full range of respondability available to them? And if not, that's a really interesting indicator of a place to work, of a place to help them develop into greater skill to be more of a match for the complex challenges we're in. So, Thomas, in a moment, I would love to put people in groups of 4. And it's just going to be for 8 minutes with a 30-second return. Great. So, actually, let's do groups of 5. Let's do groups of 5, because my guess is that we'll lose some people during the breakout of this, and I want to make sure there's at least 3 or 4 people in each group. So before we do anything like questions together, I just want you to have the opportunity to share the answer to these 2 questions I'm about to put in the chat, and to hear other people's answers to these 2 questions. And so what you're about to do essentially is a sharing circle. And you'll have like not a long time, 30 or 45 seconds to share your answer to one question, and then you'll hear everyone else's answer to that question. And then you'll move on to the second question. You'll answer it and you'll hear everyone else's answer to that second question. And here they are. Question 1 is, what has been vivid for you in this session? What's been vivid for you, alive, in the foreground? Second question is, what are you curious about, or what are you thinking deeply about? When we come back from the integration that we're doing, then we'll see what questions you have that we want to engage in together, because we'll have about 15 more minutes or so at that time. Hello there, welcome back as you're coming back. Great. How was that? Hope it was nice to talk to other people, other human beings who had the same experience you did, to hear their perspectives, to share yours. We have, about 20 minutes or so that we can spend exploring some things that you're curious about. So if you have a question or an area for us to explore together, just raise your electronic hand. Also, if you just want to say something about what you've experienced or what you said in your breakout group, that would be a fine thing to share as well. Great. So Tommy, you are our first intrepid hand raiser. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Right, thanks. So this is kind of a combination. I put this question to the breakout group as well. I'm kind of curious. I like the ideas about downshifting and have a clean air, so it's easy to communicate. So using the acronym AIR, do you have any tricks or hints or maybe some tools for assume that you're kind of coaching a management team, and you want to make sure you have a clean air. Are there some tricks or tools for creating that as a kind of a check-in exercise, maybe? If you have something to share, that would be great.
I like where you're headed, which is like a check-in exercise. Maybe, I mean, because so one thing to say is that most people do not think about the relationship level of existence. Most people are constantly dealing with the up and down of every day, and it's very turbulent, and it's like this all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time, right? And when it's stressful, the relationship level often gets stressed. What we don't realize is that we can consciously create the relationship level or the relationship system to be quite resilient and to be quite strong, even when things are coming up and down or getting very tense. And so anything you can do to point them to that relationship system, you don't have to call it that, but that is helpful. So if you were to do a check-in, you could just let it be super mundane, like, how clean would you say is the air between all of us right now? Or like, what's your perspective? I'm sure you're going to come up with a great check-in question, but just something about that to invoke the metaphor of it. And I want to give credit where credit's due. That metaphor, that acronym that comes from the leadership coaches training institute, rather, leadership program. And I found it super useful. And of course, Tommy, there's all kinds of things you can do to help teams have really resilient working agreements, including how they want to be together when it's difficult. You know, all of those things help keep the air clean over time. But the first thing is for a group to recognize, how clean is our air? Like, if we were to actually be real about this. Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, you mentioned working agreement. That's something that maybe could be useful. I'm thinking that just put as a question: how can we keep an open and clean air between ourselves and make that the team's problem to come up with the answer themselves?
Yeah, exactly. Because every group is going to have different things that they want and need, because it's a combination of individuals, right? And yeah, it would be really powerful to help them have a set of agreements, hopefully that are not just about behavior, but are also about culture. And so the question to ask to help a group formulate working agreements around their conscious culture is simply this: if we were to be conscious about the culture between us, how do we want that culture to feel? Now, when you ask a question with the F word in it, feel, just expect there to be a little bit of a pause, and you might need to give some examples. You say, like, well, do you want it to be serious and studious, or do you want it to have moments of humor? You know, how do you want it to be between yourselves as you're doing your work together? Yeah. Most people don't know they can consciously create culture. And most people don't know that they can be conscious about their relationship systems. So these are all new concepts we're bringing to people.
Great. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So Marcia has her hand up, and then we're going to pick up Dirk. Come on in, Marcia.
Hold on, I was on mute. Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm curious about your comment about how human systems are intelligent yet unconscious. And specifically, I was really intrigued. I'm going to buy the book about systems leadership, but what are some ideas to help people pay attention to the patterns that are arising? And is there any link for people in terms of looking at the conversations? So I'm a big believer in realities created through our conversations.
Yeah,
so
great.
what are some practical, pragmatic things that you might recommend?
So given that that's your area of interest, you probably already have some sort of model you help people through to understand, like the patterns of their conversations, that sort of thing. The Cantor model is one that comes to mind, the 4-player model, for example. Like, so those sorts of very concrete things can be useful to people for them to start to imagine in their own mind, oh yeah, it's not just that we talk, it's that there's a pattern. to how we talk. And we can look at those patterns over time and say, this person talks, and then this person talks, and they say nothing related to what that person said. And then that person talks, saying nothing related to these other two. So all we're doing is move, 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 and we can't build on each other. So like, just to be able for a team or a group of people to see that pattern can be really eye-opening for them. And then all of a sudden they can say, well, no wonder we get nothing done, because all we're doing, each of us putting our best idea out there, and we're not even really hearing each other. There are all these other possible conversational moves. Now, that's one entry point for you. For everyone, it's going to be different. Like for me, it's the emotional field, because you can absolutely read their emotional field of a group. And you probably do it all the time, Marcia. You can feel when they're stuck, right? You can feel when the creativity is flowing. You can feel when it's gotten dense somehow, but it's actually feels like it's still thoughtful and useful. And then you can feel when it's dense and it's just like dead, right? So one of the moves that you'll see in that Systems Inspired Leadership book is to simply name the emotional field. It's so relieving. Oh yeah, so this is something that you're familiar with, or at least it's connecting with you. Yeah, because it's so relieving for a group to hear someone on the outside say to them, wow, it just feels really stuck right now. And it seems strange that that's all you would do is just say a sentence like that. But a sentence like that helps them have more conscious intelligence about what's happening right now, more information that they can self-organize around. You know, and it sort of doesn't matter if you're right. I mean, this is the important thing about this kind of work. I mean, let's say that they're not stuck. Let's say you say, wow, it seems like you all are stuck right now. And they're like, no, we're not. We're just thinking really deeply about this. Okay, fine, great. Does that feel fruitful to you? Yes, that feels fruitful to us. Go ahead, keep thinking deeply. So it doesn't matter if it's right or not. It helps them see themselves, and that's the whole purpose. Yeah, is that helpful?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Lots more moves, but those are two I can think of right now. Dirk, what you got?
Yeah, I'm a bit curious about when working then with the leadership teams and so on, and touching these questions. How much trust and safety are needed in a group before you really can start up a journey like that? I feel a bit, they have to be at a certain level before you even can take that. Or what is your take on that? What are the kind of the preconditions that you can jump on this journey? Or could you do it not in whatever toxic but yeah, what are your reflections around that there? What has to be there before you can jump on it?
I think you're wise to think about this. I think you're very wise to think about it. So there are very many leadership teams that will never go here. That will never, ever go here. And you can start to tiptoe into this territory, but as soon as the attention turns from like the aggravation or the excitement or whatever about the thing of the day to their patterns, they go, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't want to have anything to do with that. Right.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know what to do with leadership teams like that, because they're not attracted to working with me. So I don't usually work with them. Having said that, the leadership teams I am working with, and now these are leadership teams that are founding organizations that are based on the ideas of empiricism and self-organization and agility and like all the beautiful modern future ways of working. Even in that situation, we're still working on all the same things I talked about in the last hour. I mean, so it's still about inner relationship skill, when you come right down to it. Now, of course, that's my particular angle. That's not the only angle. There's also structure, and process and governance, and all those are totally valid angles and other ways into helping a team in the situation you're talking about. But I think that sometimes we can tend to think that they need to be at a certain level of trust among themselves before we can work with them. And I think that it might be that we have to design a robust enough alliance with them at the very beginning so that trust between us and them is established, and then we can just go right to the heart of it. You know?
Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, you bet. So what other questions, musings, thoughts, conversations are out there?
My question, and we talked about it a little bit during the breakout room, that was me not really understanding this, the word chord having, but you explained it in a very good way for me. So maybe it's more people that it does not understand really what you meant.
Let's talk about that. So turning myself in, folks, that's the first time I've led a group through chord release. I do it quite often with my one-on-one clients. And I have done it with a small team of leaders before. But, leading a group of people in this distributed way, it was like super, an experiment. And one of the things I realized is that I might not have been clear enough about what we're actually doing in a chord release. And even the word chord is a little bit odd because we don't use it in everyday language. So just imagine that between you and any other person, there are many, many chords or connections. You can imagine them as ropes or little thin spider silk, even sometimes they can imagine as chains or things that are heavier like twine or knots. So between you and anyone you interact with, there are a bunch of cords, a bunch of energetic cords. And the purpose of chord release is to let the ones go that no longer serve your intention. In other words, all the things that have made the air really dirty between you and this other person. Now, you can keep the ones that do serve your intention, and just intuitively, your body and your mind knows what to do. It knows which ones to let go, and it knows which ones to keep. And this is just a way of you freeing up the energy inside of yourself that right now is bound up with all those arguments that you have in your head between you and this other person. It's just freeing up your own energy so that you can be clearer about what you want, what your next steps would be. Back to that reactive to creative line of questioning. You could notice that reactive voice in your head and now have a new set of answers to the question, what am I committed to creating in this situation after you do a chord release? So it's not that you're letting this person go necessarily. It's not that you're like, you're dead to me, I'm out of here, I can't work with you, gone. It's more like, things are a little muddy right now. Let me just get rid of the stuff that's no longer serving and see what's still here. So did I say anything better than that, Thomas, that made it clearer for you?
Yes, I think because in the beginning I was thinking of that it was just one chord, like you had a relationship with people, kind of, and letting go was to say, well, you're gone, as you say. But after your explanation, I understand that there are many chords, that there are many like feelings you have, histories and things. And now I understand my feeling, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is very close to this idea of the subject and object. Like there's a lot of things that are subject for me, but I could really decide, is this helping me? Is it useful? And if it's not, I can just say, let it go of that one.
I like it.
Releasing the chords.
Yeah, this is a good subject-object move.
Mm.
We're making these chords and these energetic connections objects, and before we didn't even think about them at all. They just ran us.
Yes.
And
I'm thinking of it like in a leadership group, there might be a lot of, competitions between people. Feeling like it's important that I'm right. It's important that I'm showing the best of me, that I'm playing the game, I'm saying the right things, and maybe those are the things that I could actually get rid of. Feeling that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So that is also chords to others that you can feel like, he was before me of saying that good thing, or why am I not getting the credits for something, kind of, and feeling you have. I know that you don't like the word bad, but bad feelings for people. So
let's say the things that no longer serve you.
exactly. So those feelings are not serving me anymore, and it will not help us become a more successful company.
Right.
So
basically, when we have a lot of energetic cords in our bodies related to someone else, we just have a lot of our own energy bound up. You know, so that's all cord release is doing, is allowing us to free up those places where we are unconsciously running over the same scripts, the same problem solution loops, the same worries, the same aggravations. It's just releasing all of that.
yeah, I can see that when you get stuck, it sometimes could be of this feeling that I came up with this. I want to, run it. It's important. It's part of me. It's part of my ego to let it go. But I think it's important to sometimes just let it go and let something else in.
Yeah. And just so you know, and everyone else knows, cord release is like a super normal thing in a lot of circles. If you go into any of these meditation apps and you put in cord release or cord cutting, you're going to come up with dozens and dozens and dozens of different visualizations, different sort of journeys that people can lead you on in different ways of releasing and then resetting cords.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Michael and Jenny.
I think we have a problem with the sound.
Oh, we do have a problem with the sound. I see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you right now.
Does it work now?
Now it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
What? It's nice echo.
Rundgång.
Vänta.
Bye, Christina. Do we want to stay with you to try to troubleshoot it?
Yeah. So while you're troubleshooting, I may ask Lyssa. I heard you before talk about this idea of not showing up with your whole self, like having a mask. Is that something you can release as well? Is this kind of included in this?
Well, I'm doing it right now. I mean, how weird is it, do you think, to lead a whole group of people through cord release and have a bunch of people go, that's really weird? I mean, we're all doing our leadership development work all the time, right? And I really did go through that reactive to creative cycle of asking myself, because of course I hear in my head, these people are going to think you're crazy. Like, you're never going to get any work if this is what people think you do, all of that stuff. And then I ask myself, what am I committed to creating? Well, in a nutshell, I'm committed to creating people who are in authentic and conscious relationship with each other, because we don't have time to screw around anymore. And if that's what I'm committed to creating, then I need to show up as my full self with tools that I know can be useful in helping people have authentic and conscious relationship with each other. Because we've got to be making some healthier decisions on this planet. So that's why it's worth the risk. And yes, there's lots of masks, and I'm constantly trying to take mine off, and I'm sure other people are too. Yeah.
Yes.
Michael and Jenny, do we want to try you again? And I also saw Astrid, so I don't want to leave Astrid out.
Could we take?
So I think it should work. One second. Oh.
A lot of echo.
Okay, now it works. So
Oh, yeah, now
yes.
it works. Great. Yeah.
Okay,
Astrid, we
so
haven't forgotten you. We're coming back to you next.
just the question then. So these cord release, I think the cord metaphor and looking at this really useful. I've done in team settings similar where actually visualizing communication patterns.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking of visualizing the relationship patterns more like the chords. So one thing was we kind of intuitively released the connections. Is there more also of an explicit kind of visualization or exercise you could do in a team in addition to the kind of implicit release?
We probably would have to make it up, but I think it makes a lot of sense to try something like that. If you listen to some of these other chord release audios, some of them have this another step, which is like, okay, now imagine the healthy chords between you and the other person, or in our case, we could talk about a team, right? Or you could go to something much more mundane. You could go to them drawing out like a paper constellation of how they want the team to be oriented in a more healthy way. You know, and what would be some of the characteristics of the chords that we would want to keep between ourselves? So I think lots of different ways to go. It will be worth experimenting and finding some really powerful things for people.
Yeah, thanks. I
You
think
know,
visualizing them would be
yeah.
good.
Yeah, and Astrid is saying hold rope between people. That's often I travel around the world with yarn because this is actually the easiest way to get people to visualize their relationship system, is that they're holding strings between them and everyone else. And then you say things like, okay, so you're a team and you have a job to do. You've got to give one end of your string to some other people on this team and make a web strong enough that it can hold a product, like let's say someone's cell phone, and so they can visualize that, and then you can say things like, okay, so 3 of you get in a conflict with each other silently now. Show what happens when you all are in a strong disagreement with your strings, and what happens to your product when that happens. So that's a real classic way of doing it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Astrid, I'm going to go ahead and have you come in before we go to Murat.
Yeah, I think it was already answered when
Okay.
they talked about the mask. So I was thinking of ropes that you have within yourself.
Yeah. So many. At least I do. So good to see you, dear. So good to see you. Thanks for bringing your voice forward. Hey, Murat, you're going to be the last one.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is, I'm not a leader, so my question
Yes,
is
you are.
how. Yeah, not in a specific role. Thank you. I know what you mean. That's why I'm also trying to participate in these kind of workshops and classes. But my question is, there are people in leading positions. How do we encourage them to participate in these kind of self-improvement and generally organizational improvement moves and stuff, right? I have heard this, but how do I transition, or how do I take this with me to my work environment?
Yeah. So unless they're encountering some sort of pain, they're unlikely to go here. That's what I would say. So that pain can come in several forms. Most people who are in organizational leadership positions right now are in significant pain because their ways of working no longer work. And even if they work for a little while, there's some major thing that happens usually outside the business that really impacts the business and just, upsets everything all over again. So to not make it all better for them is one way to start opening the door to the fact that they might need to shift a little bit in order to essentially get out of their own pain. Now, if you're in a position where you're in a team or a group of teams that are creating a product or something of value for the organization, one way that leaders can be confronted with the pain that is actually theirs to feel is the information that you have at the delivery team level about how the organization is not set up to get the results it wants, and the specific impacts of that in terms of product not delivered, people leaving the organization, like whatever are the actual business impacts of that. Now, oftentimes people on a team or even in a program of teams think, oh yeah, we're not powerful enough to make a difference? Like, why would they care about the impact to us of a given business decision or our environment? And maybe as one solo voice, that's true. But when you start talking with other teams across an organization and you start seeing that these patterns of impediments that are holding the organization back exist not only for you, but for them, and then you start to, I often call it picking up the roses scattered at your feet. You have these roses scattered at your feet in the form of data about the impacts of how the organization is currently working on the ability of the teams to deliver. And so if you can pick up these roses and start producing the actual data that goes along with it, sometimes that can be useful for leaders to see, hang on, not only do we have an organizational thing to deal with, but I myself am impacting this in a way that's not helpful. But as long as we keep shielding people from pain, I don't think there's a reason for them to change.
Excellent. I love this idea. I see some leaders having a high pain tolerance.
Yes, they do. Oh, we all do. We have a huge high pain tolerance. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is where the comfort of your community, and I would say, I don't know what communities you're in, but one of the communities I'm in is the Future of Work community. Another community is the Agile community. These are places that I go to get my well filled up, because it's incredibly long-term work that requires a tremendous amount of patience, what we're doing. Tremendous amount of patience.
Thank you very much. I love this idea, gathering data and yeah, showing it to the leaders. Thank you very much.
Pick up those roses scattered at your feet. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
And it's time for us to say thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's always a pleasure to have you in a program or just meeting you. You always make us feel so comfortable. That's really a talent. So thank you very much, everyone. Now I should have prepared what is for the next week, but I think that Jenny is the best person to introduce the next speaker that we will have in a little bit more than 1 week. So over to you, Jenny.
Sure. Thank you so much, Lyssa. This was amazing. It was wonderful to sit down and be a human being with everyone here, and for you to just paint up that visual painting in front of us. Amazing. Thank you. So next week we have John Cutler, and he is going to talk about navigating the everyday beautiful mess. So let's see what we're digging into then. I also want to remind you of that this is the last session in this year's program. I'm a bit sad about that. But we really hope for a program next year as well. So please go into the Miro board and add any suggestions that you want to hear from new speakers, old speakers, or any feedback, thoughts, anything that you would like us to see improving the program and make it even better than it is. Thank you so much, everyone. And I love to hear your voices. I hope you would like to share them when you say goodbye and sign off. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Lyssa. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.